प्रोग्राम में हमें ज्वाइन किया है सीजे वर्लीमैन ने। इंटरनेशनल जर्नलिस्ट हैं, एक्टिविस्ट हैं, ह्यूमन राइट पे इन्होंने बहुत एक्सटेंसिवली काम किया है, कश्मीर पे भी बहुत ज़्यादा इन्होंने काम किया, इस्लामोफोबिया पे भी काम किया है। सो वेलकम टू द शो सीजे वर्लीमैन। लेट मी आस्क यू द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन. You have extensively worked, reported and tweeted about Kashmir. Do you think these Indian atrocities and this oppression will ever end? Is there any solution to it, you think?
There's definitely a solution, and that solution would come via the United Nations through a plebiscite that's long been promised to the Kashmiri people. More than 70 years ago, the Kashmiris were promised a right to determine their own future via referendum or plebiscite. But what we've seen, today marks the 73rd anniversary of Indian soldiers landing in the disputed territory, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in that period. We're seeing the same atrocities which were carried out 7 decades ago that are being carried out today. If anything, they've become materially worse. Today, we have almost 750,000 Indian soldiers in Indian-administered Kashmir, meting out all kinds of human rights violations against the local population, the indigenous population, including security checkpoints, indefinite detainment, arbitrary arrest, torture, forced disappearance and the like. We've seen tens of thousands of people disappear certainly since 1989. And these atrocities continue to occur on a daily basis. And the international community has shown no appetite to change the current status quo. And as anything, things have become certainly measurably worse since August 5th of last year, when New Delhi decided suddenly to revoke Kashmir's semi-autonomous status, and I guess effectively launching what is the start of India's Hindu settler colonial project in the disputed territory.
So, CJ, what do you think? What is the reason behind this? I mean, you have mentioned about UN, and I'm also mentioning UN with US. So why these, superpowers, these bodies, who are there to, help mankind in, whenever they're in the problem? So why they're reluctant? What do you think is the reason that, that is stopping them from, taking any action? We have seen lots of reports, statements, lots of stuff on social media as well. So what is that one reason that is holding them, taking any action against these atrocities by these Indian armies?
Yeah, ultimately the United Nations is it's a failed institution or failing institution. It's really only set up to protect the interests of great powers. And India is an emerging great power, certainly a regional power, and that other great powers, including the United States, see India as an important asset in the new emerging superpower rivalry between itself and China. They see the United States sees India as a bulwark against China's expansion in Central Asia, and therefore is in no mood or motivation to pressure India into resolving Kashmir. When I say that it needs to be resolved through the international community, it needs to be a multilateral effort. It needs to be an international effort, because as it stands at the moment, India has successfully isolated the rest of the world, or the international community, from resolving the issue, and has made it instead a bilateral issue between it and Pakistan. And therefore, the rest of the world sits on the sidelines, somewhat bemused or confused as to the realities of the conflict, just seeing it as a rivalry or regional rivalry between the two Asian heavyweights, and therefore waiting for a resolution which is never going to come.
Right. So this is the economic side of it, which is amongst the heaviest sides. But the other thing, which is is in discussion, there's a theory that prevails that says that U.S. of course is has offered a mediation between President Trump has offered a mediation between Pakistan and India on Kashmir issue as well, and those escalations which happened in February. So my point is that this aggression, this moody oppression, this moody madness, you name it, whatever you want, is basically isolating India from the rest of the world. This is a new India which is building. So you think this economic imbalance with this isolation of India is something which is India open for? I mean, they're okay with this school of thought that, okay, if we're being isolated from the rest of the world, that is fine. We're going to get the economic benefits. Is this like this, or it's just a theory?
Yeah, I'm sure that New Delhi believes that or fears that it may have overreached in abrogating Article 370 of the Constitution as it relates to Kashmir, because in doing so, India has successfully done what human rights activists and Kashmiri activists have failed to do for the last 3 decades, and that's to put Kashmir in the international spotlight. India's stripping of Kashmir's semi-autonomous status has done exactly that, and we saw that in the middle of last year when we saw a plethora, on a daily basis, international news media outlets covering the conflict, covering the plight of Kashmiris on a daily basis, from the BBC to the New York Times to the Washington Post to the Sydney Morning Herald. The lives of Kashmiris were put forth, put front and square for the first time, in living memory. So that is a big concern for India, because what that has done, it is created some sort of solidarity movement with the Kashmiri people against India's aggression in the territory. And what you're now seeing the grassroots emergence of boycott, divest, sanction movements against India, certainly in their early days, but they will be mirrored on a successful or ongoing campaign to exact an economic cost on Israel, the BDS Israel movement, which is exacting an economic cost for Israel's 5 decades-long illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories.
Correct, but the BDS had a different impact. The things we're seeing right now is actually moving in Kashmir on the model of Israel oppression, which they have in that region. You think this
Sure.
this Indian model, which they're adopting right now, is more or less, or it's juxtaposed to the Israel model, and that we haven't really seen as a success story. If you look at the people of Palestine, their voice is still there, and it is echoing around in every other corner. And likewise as the Kashmiris. So that model, Israeli or the model of Indians, it's pretty much the same. But the results, they're not something, they should be optimistic about.
Well, certainly I would give the BDS Israel movement a little bit more time. We are seeing a change of public opinion in the United States and Europe. In fact, most of the governments in Europe now are staunchly opposed to Israel's illegal settlement enterprise in the Palestinian territories. And we're seeing younger American voters between the ages of 18 and 35, which are staunchly opposed to Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories, and also are opposed to the unbiased and unfettered support the United States government offers Israel. So we're seeing a change in the guard in U.S. politics, and the BDS Israel campaign has a lot to be credited for in that regards. So again, let's say, give that more time, and we will see success from that. And I think for the mere fact that people are now starting to see there's a definite correlation between what Israel has done to Palestinian territories and what India is doing in disputed Kashmir or Indian-occupied Kashmir. To see the similarities, they see that India will be setting up military outposts, turning those military outposts into settlements, and turning those settlements into cities and large cities, the same way Israel has done in the occupied West Bank. And once people start to make that mental connection between the two issues, then you'll see global solidarity movements against Indian-occupied Kashmir grow with even more fervor.
Right. There's a mindset which I would like to talk with you about that is prevalent in India right now. I understand the world understands the mindset Modi is having, the RSS thing he has in his mind, and also the Hindutva. He's trying to impose everywhere in the world, but that is eventually dwelling down to the people. I was just looking around the Twitter today. There's a blast in Pakistan, city Peshawar, and there are almost 7 kids who have lost their life in that blast. And I've seen, lots of Indians, some of the senior officials, they're having fun about it. They're happy about it. This is not a civilian's mindset that they get happy on someone getting martyred. I mean, there are a lot of incidents that have been happening there in India, and I'm a witness to it. That we here inside Pakistan are not like really happy about it that civilians are dying. But today, I was shocked, I was upset, and I was this thing is vindicating that Modi's mindset is penetrating slowly, and that is there. I don't know you have seen this or not, but this is there. What kind of mindset Modi is having, and what kind of mindset he's spreading around in his own masses.
Well, I mean, if you make a very salient point. Hindutva fascism, and that's exactly what it is. That's what Hindu nationalism is. It has made Indian society sick. It has made mainstream Indian society sick. We saw that when the Pakistani Airways jet crashed earlier this year. We saw Indian Twitter celebrating the death of Pakistani passengers, and we're seeing the same kind of reaction today with the attack on the school in Peshawar. That is otherization of Muslims, that demonization of Pakistan, which are two strands on which Hindutva is built. Gloats in any success over Pakistani or Muslim misery. I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that this is the way that these Hindu nationalists see their country. They see India can only be restored to some sort of imagined form of greatness only if it can remove all non-Hindu.
Right. Thank you very much. We had Mr. C.J. Werleman.